Saturday!
All right, everyone. Welcome back to Saturday Night Sell Swords. Right now, actually, what we're going to be doing is a recap, kind of like a Dungeon Master debrief.
Yeah.
So what happened was, Episode 7 was lost. We had been recording all night. We had a lot of interesting things happen. But unfortunately, at the end, when we went to wrap everything up, the recording software crapped out.
It just didn't produce any files.
Yeah, it just didn't produce anything.
It just disappeared.
Yeah.
I have no idea why.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, it was just a lot of it was some minor character development and details coming out about most of the players.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the end when we had
that last 45 minutes.
a direct communication with Tyr for a little bit. That was
we'll go into that a little more at the end of this. But what I want to do is kind of take a moment to, as the Dungeon Master, go back and talk about some of the stuff that has been done in the campaign so far. I know that in the Lost Lands, not necessarily everybody has the same depth of knowledge. And so what I want to do is kind of help bring everybody up to speed, so they can participate in conversation, they can participate in the story more, and they can feel more connected to what's going on.
As well as differentiate from what traditionally the different realms and use of Dungeons and Dragons and other systems have their own interpretation of some of these things, as well as just general our own world's fairy tales and folklore on some of the creatures, like with the Fey realm.
Exactly. So that leads us to our first topic.
Yep.
So this is something we had already talked about a little bit briefly, and then that video was lost. So we're going to try to do this again. So in episode 7,
we wound up with the giants of the Unseelie Court, I believe.
Well, so they're not giants.
They were large.
They were large humanoids. Nobody had actually identified what race they were, and once they became friendly, I kind of stopped pushing the envelope.
Okay. Did you want to reveal the race on here,
no.
or
If you guys ever encounter them again, it'll be an opportunity.
Right, so a larger humanoid of the Fey realm, hailing from the Unseelie Court or the Winter Court, right?
Well, so it's the Unseelie Court, but the Unseelie Court is more aligned to fall and winter.
Yes.
So for those of you who don't know. And just to kind of help bring everybody up to speed, a little bit of a recap. The Feywild is a plane that kind of mirrors and overlaps the Prime Material. It's similar to the Plane of Shadow, and also at the same time it's not.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird space.
So it's like it's based on the same original blueprint, but done drastically different.
Yeah. So it's very influenced by Druidic and Celtic mythos. Each system, each dungeon master, each setting is going to have their very own unique, special spin on it, their own interpretation of it. It all is kind of like a mix of like the Eternal Hunting Grounds, a lot of like old Celtic and Nordic mythos for the afterlife and that kind of stuff. And then there's also several other interpretations that get brought in, and it's a big old melting pot of really cool stuff. But for the most part, within the Feywild, there are two factions. There's the Seelie Court and there's the Unseelie Court. And there may be some other factions depending on which setting you're in and who's your dungeon master. But for the most part, the Seelie Court represent the powers of life, so spring and summer, and then the Unseelie Court represent the powers of decay and death, so fall and winter. A common misconception is that the Unseelie Court is evil, which is they're not. They're chaotic sometimes, but for the most part they're neutral.
They're part of the equation.
They're part of the equation. They're part of the balance,
yes,
which is the important part. There are some Fey creatures that are evil. There are some Fey creatures that are good. They don't necessarily have to be from the Unseelie and then Seelie Court, respectively. It depends on the creature.
Yeah.
So a good example of the two Fey creatures would be like pixies and nixies. So
I've heard of pixies plenty of times in different versions, but nixies I have not.
So nixies, in my opinion, are just like the unseelie version of pixies. So pixies, playful, charismatic, very joyous. Nixies, mischievous. They're the ones in A Midsummer's Night's Dream who would be the one turning people into donkeys. They're the more mischievous.
They're the ones that traditionally in folklore would be the ones whisking you away to the Fey realm because they think it's funny.
Correct.
Or
they would be the tomfools of the group, right? They play practical jokes.
Yeah.
And sometimes those practical jokes kill people, but it's never their intent to be like derogatory or
it's just
deliberately harmful.
Their perception, their morality can. Depending on the system, depending on the DMs, and the stories,
it tends to be more mischievous.
But it's definitely it's a different culture,
right?
And you gotta understand that when you deal with different cultures, whether it be fictional like dwarf and all this and that, and pixies or whatever.
Right. So, going back to what the party encountered, Issa's character was able to negotiate a few favors.
Yep.
With these. Giants who seem to be from the Feywild. They were there because it was going to be the time of spring soon. And so the powers of the Unseelie Court were fading, and the powers of the Seelie Court were coming into power. And so they effectively decided they were going to emigrate from the Feywild temporarily to the Prime Material to escape the fading of their power and to set up a temporary base.
Home away from home until their time comes again. Kind of
Correct.
Thing. Okay.
It just happened to be
where we were at.
Where you were at, and in a generally populated area.
Yeah.
So the region where this temporary forest appeared was just north of Bard's Gate, just south of Glendover
right
Close.
About near Glenclove Close. Yeah.
Glendalf Close.
Glendalf Close.
And that's not hard canon for the setting. That's something that's campaign canon.
Yeah.
All right. So, and they're there just hunting, interacting with people. Again, they are not deliberately evil.
They're not malicious or anything.
They're not malicious, but they have claimed territory. And if you were to wander into the territory, they attack you.
Yep.
And then they, for the most part, just take your stuff, or they tell you to leave.
Yeah.
They don't actively kill people.
Well, and they clearly held no ill will after we slayed two of them. It was like, it happens.
Yeah, that's their... So these are the hunters.
Yeah.
These are the predators when it comes to nature. And so they recognize the concept of, if we were to test a quarry and fail, that's a reflection of our ability.
Repercussion of it, yeah.
Right. That's the repercussion of being a failed hunter. And so I did my best to emulate that.
I think you did a good job on that.
Yeah, after you guys took that one prisoner.
Well, laughably took him prisoner.
Laughably took
It's like, oh, you tied him up. Great job, guys. Yeah. All right, so we go back to my area. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
But the favor came around because, and I was surprised by this, was that Gauss and Grenadier decided they want to go back to the manor to consecrate it. Grenadier. I've been saying that wrong that whole... I've been saying Grenadier this entire time.
Grenadier is a person who throws grenades.
I know, that's probably why I've been saying, because that's my archetype.
Oh, yeah. No,
Grenadier.
Yeah.
I'll note that later. But Grenadier and Gauss surprised everyone going, we're going back to the manor, bye.
Well, yeah. So
I didn't know if you were a part of that originally, Isha, or if it was a...
So I think that little
I'll help you.
Well, the Grenadier and Gauss sub-faction of the party has been kind of press gang together due to egg puns.
I think that, and I think it's also because they're smaller characters. Well, I mean, he's still a dwarf. He's still a little shorter than everyone else.
Yeah. But yeah, so they decided that there was still the unholy altar at the manor that was dedicated to Tiamat.
Well, you learned things from the shaman that sparked that.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the prior episode. We did learn some stuff, which probably I think led to those decisions.
And we can go into that a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So at this point, hopefully you've seen episode 0. In episode 0, we go over Gauss's backstory a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not an original concept by any means. He's a dragon that's been cursed to be a kobold.
Yep.
I think there are several other active online D&D games that have a character.
Well, it's a trope. You know, you're in the wrong body situation and you're trying to return back to your former
like a Freaky Friday kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a fun one.
The difference is that I've actually, and I've told him, like, if he can find a way to, like, we'll just convert his hit die to dragon hit die, but I'll allow him to keep his sorcerer levels.
Mm-hmm.
So the dragon sorcerer levels suck, like, because they have to make up for the fact that they're dragons. But
if you stack them.
But yeah, I was basically going to allow him to stack them. Now, I don't think he's ever actually going to be able to do it, because the quest is by far incredibly arduous and would require an exorbitant amount of resources and time and cooperation from the party, which is already beginning to fumble.
Well, one member, but yeah.
I mean, the first domino is going to fall eventually.
Eventually.
But the shaman kind of recognized what was going on with him and recognized the egg, and then told him that something along the lines of, your quest will fail until all of those altars have been destroyed. And that was kind of the rabbit hole I wanted him to fall down, because the hard part about being a hero is having the thing you have to do and having the thing you want to do.
Yeah.
And deciding between the two.
Yeah.
So he's effectively has to make a decision, like, do I continue pursuing the Sword of Air, or do I go right this wrong that's happened to me? And hopefully he's going to try to do both at the same time, and it will be an opportunity for you guys to explore the southern Stoneheart Mountains, because that's kind of where his...
Those are the center mountain up there?
Yeah, the really big ones on Akados. These guys right here.
Gotcha.
So kind of like this region.
So basically where we're at is a lot where his stuff is, or part of it.
Well, yes, but remember, right now, sparring the last 45 minutes of discussion, your current quest is over here.
Yes.
So
I mean, that's my character's personal quest, is get up there.
Yeah.
Find that city.
There's a bit of a gap. But yeah, so you guys, Grendir, Gauss, and Issa were able to broker a teleportation.
Yep. Which saved them, I think,
2 days.
2 days.
2 days worth of travel, because they were going. Oh,
no, it was going to be, I think, 9 days originally total, but back and forth.
Yeah,
and the teleport
that's true.
Cut
because
out
the 2 days was factoring that they were going to find a way to summon mounts to basically force carry them. It's, quadrupeds, horses. They have faster base speed, faster push speed, etc., etc. But
two of us get summoned.
yeah. But the interesting thing is, in typical Sierra fashion, fashion. Thank you. For the standard teleport, there's like a percentile chance of arriving on target, and it basically gauges how far away from your true target you're going to be. And so she, rolled as low as she rolled a 3 on a D100.
She rolls low on the percentile.
Yeah, so they're only 3 miles away from their target, which is like in a casual walk.
Almost like they were at the foot of the manor, pretty much.
Effectively, yeah, because it was on a very,
And granted, they could have been teleported right outside the shaman's tent. Well, that's what you're gonna get.
Effectively, yeah, they could. Yeah.
But they made it.
Which is the important part of teleporting. Every teleport you walk away from is a good teleport.
And of course, doing that, though, did the one thing that you're never supposed to do.
Split the party.
Split the party.
And so they arrived at the foot of the manor, and they could see up inside the manor there was like this rampaging dragon.
Yeah, it was on fire.
And it was on fire. The manor was on fire. Everything was angry.
Many jokes it could be more on fire, too.
Yeah. And they spent a good 30 minutes trying to figure out what to do, and then they slowly, low crawled their way over to that old dumbwaiter that was down at the base of the manor.
I also recall you throwing out multiple times that dragons have a huge area of senses that they can see and hear very far.
Yeah, dragons are there's always like a really funny thread online that I like to participate in. Like if you ever look at a dragon's picture,
oh,
their eyes as like a dominant predator you would think would be both forward.
Yeah.
But they're
actually
more like
on
a
the side.
horse. It's like a combo of a horse and a predator where they're kind of off to the side.
Yeah.
And so it's like, why would their evolution force them to have that more wider field of vision?
Which is common in prey.
Exactly, which is more common in prey. And the answer is other dragons.
Yep.
And so dragons have a huge bonus to perception in most games.
Oh yeah, I've seen
They have
there.
like almost super sight. They have impeccable hearing, impeccable scent. Like they have an amazing perception. I think that one that I had kind of rolled up in the moment had like a plus 39. Like it was insane, right? And so they're trying to make stealth checks as
best
as they can
with one member in plate, practically.
so you also have to remember there is a penalty to perception based off of distance.
Yeah.
And so I was factoring a penalty, but as the closer they got to the manor, obviously the penalty goes down. So they got to the base of the dumbwaiter and they start trying to like figure out what to do, and then they just hear the voice from up on the manor like calling down to them.
Right down at
just
them.
get up here. And
Yeah.
they go up into the manor, and so effectively, the dragon's not stupid.
Yeah.
It casts Geese or Quest.
Only because he tried to hide the egg from the dragon.
Exactly. Only because he tried to hide the egg from the dragon.
Which was very much in character.
Which is very much in character. And so I was also hoping to allude that means a violent red dragon perceived enough perceived enough
Residue magic?
no,
Or-
perceived value in that egg as to not just breath weapon them and kill them.
That's true. I didn't even think of that.
Right?
Even though it is basically a dead egg at this point, at least we think.
You think?
I don't know.
No, you said it was a.
It's corrupted at least.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
Oh,
so
as a player now, the light bulb just went off. Oh.
And so,
Yeah.
and so, it gazed them to
Yep.
basically go get whoever helped you recover that and bring them here.
Yep.
And you're gonna fight Varrock.
In 7 days.
In 7 days, right? So they haul ass back
Yep.
to the Fae camp, and the shaman is requested to give more aid for free.
Yeah.
And basically, cast the remove curse to lift the.
I forget
The
who
gayest
was
Roman.
the favor for that one? Was that Gauss?
No, that was Issa.
Oh, you took both favors?
It had to be Issa because he wouldn't have given it to Gauss.
No, we paid for the second one.
Oh
Gauss
yeah,
did.
they paid for the second one.
Okay. But did we pay enough in terms of Fae, though? That's...
So, I mean, purchasing spellcasting is always kind of weird. There's no real reason that a spellcaster would say no, because it's just like an innate ability, and it is an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah.
And I don't think Remove Curse has a substantial material component.
I think it was
recall.
only like 450 gold or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it was fairly cheap compared to the shaman's wealth.
Yeah.
Compared
So he
to
was just
what
gonna be
the-
like, "Yeah, you guys
what
done
the-
goofed."
I mean,
Like,
granted, as you clarified, the dragon knows it was removed,
correct.
which means we have a. Was that an adult or an ancient? Because I think you said just
Yeah.
adult.
You're not sure.
I wasn't there though. So
Yeah, I'll give you a hint. It's
No, you
it's
said-
it's somewhere north of adult.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah, remove curse has no material component.
yeah,
That's
I
just
didn't think
payment.
so. Yeah, so yeah. While they were gone, the party did.
Oh, I crafted some stuff.
Somebody in particular.
Somebody went a little far with trying to do more egg
More egg
puns.
jokes. Yeah.
Alec was being a goth teenager.
Yeah.
And then that started leading into some of the shenanigans for Nakamura because of Van offering to help but also learn his secrets.
Yep. Yeah. So, was this one of the points that you?
This is one of the points,
All right,
but
let's
did we
go to
want to do
that.
anything more of the party that left for a little bit?
No, I think that about sums it up.
Okay. So Nakamura
Yeah.
had come to Van. Van had talked about in prior episodes about potentially improving his capabilities with his weapon.
Yeah.
And Van would also need to know something about how it works to help him.
Yeah.
And he let him take a sample of the powder. Didn't tell him anything, but
Yeah.
through my own personal knowledge as a player on how gunpowder actually put together and trying to give a reason why Van as an alchemist would have some bit of knowledge that could find it, I gave him a little like, oh, I can taste sulfur in there.
Yeah.
And I left it at that. And we seemed to have no problem with that. Unfortunately, Nakamura was like, okay, I'm going to tell you a second ingredient.
Yeah.
Charcoal.
Yeah.
And then something happened.
Yeah. So what happened was he had to make a will save,
Yep.
and he just passed
Oh, shit.
the will save with like a nat 20.
And Jamie does roll low a lot,
Yeah.
so you know, like,
And so he felt this like overwhelming burning sensation in his hands for a few seconds, and then he was able to force himself through the pain and
Yep.
kind of void the spell effects. And then so
but he got a hint.
he got a hint of,
2 X's, I believe.
yes, each hand had a red X in it. And now this is basically what, so he doesn't know really in depth the backstory that I've worked up for him.
That
His-
gives more genuine reactions then.
Yeah. And so, and when I told him, because he asked permission if he could play a gunslinger.
Yeah.
And I said, Frog God has a campaign setting called the Razor Coast that favors black powder technology. I'm willing to incorporate it, but there are certain things that I want you to do for your character, like not actively share black powder technology.
Yeah.
And I told him that if he wants to keep the weapon and modify it, that's fine.
Mhm.
The base gunslinger package, it gives you the ability to repair
Yeah.
and
Gives you all the
do some very
tinkering,
mundane
skill
tinkering,
yeah.
for the musket. And to build on that, I told him you can take many shot or whatever it is, the one that lets you shoot twice, but they have to be at the same
I
target.
think rapid shot.
Rapid
mini
shot, yeah, or yeah.
There's
I
a
think
whole
rapid
chain
shot.
of
There's
them.
a whole
you can
chain
go,
of them, yeah. But I was like, logically, yes, you can put 2 balls down the barrel
Mhm.
and then shoot it. You're gonna take the -2 that the feat gives you,
Yeah.
but just you have to put both shots into the same target.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine kind of bending the rules so your character can have access to some better feats. I'm fine.
Yeah, not to mention he's trying to build up to when he starts getting all of his, because basically the gunslinger is kind of based off a fighter class, I think.
Yeah.
So he's trying. I know he's trying to, because I talked to him about it, to get to the point where when he has 2, 3, 4, and then plus the feats for attacks,
Yeah.
he has a way to, use it.
Yeah. Well, yes. All that is effectively balanced by the reload mechanic.
Yeah.
For a black powder. And so there is an enchantment that you can put on a crossbow
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to reload faster. And I told him, if you take craft arms and armor as the feat, you could research this enchantment and then at no additional cost just find a way to put it on the musket. So that you're the one making the modifications to the musket magically in order to make it better. And then it stays with you. Then I was like, that's how I would want your character to do this. And then he starts talking to you about, well, how can I get special cartridges and how can I make this reload faster? And I'm just like, consequences. And so the consequence of the main thing I told him not to do was actively share the black powder stuff. And so he starts bargaining with you about,
to give him credit, he did try to keep it just between me and him, and I think in a way to try to even use my character's understanding and knowledge of alchemical stuff. Well, even though it's not outright stated, but hey, you use a lot of little extra tricks. Maybe you can help.
Yeah.
But it is still going against of what you were like. Don't do that.
Yeah. And then so later in the game, you have like a eureka moment.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
I did use my classmate ability, which is a ridiculous craft alchemy skill bonus, and
Yeah.
hey,
And so
the last ingredient, saltpeter.
Saltpeter.
Wow, that's so simple and elegant. And then, lots of screaming and pain.
Lots of screaming and pain.
And then, did you happen to? Yeah.
Well, so what happens is those red X's come back.
Yeah.
And it looks like he'd been basically like shot through the hands. So there's a bullet wound in the center of his palms, and they're actively bleeding, and the blood is what is producing the X in the palms. And so then I had everybody around roll spellcraft. I upped the DC because they weren't the target and they didn't see the casting.
Yeah.
So that affects the DC of the spellcraft check. With respect to Pathfinder, it's not necessarily that way in all editions.
Yeah.
And I think Steve was the one who passed.
I
Alec,
think he did barely.
just barely. And so he recognized the spell as Mark of the Thief.
Yeah,
I
I
forget.
think so.
I in this moment I forget the name of the spell.
I think
It's like Red
Mark of
Hand of the Thief or something like that. But it had been changed slightly. Now, so the way that I arbitrate the use of Wish, Miracle, and Limited Wish is when it says it can duplicate the effects of spells of certain levels or lower or whatever. I also allow them to be modified slightly because it's a much more powerful version via the universal magic.
Which, I
and
mean,
Wish.
as I like told them when I was talking outside at one point, what we read in the books on how the spell is supposed to work is like 90% of the time, this is what happens.
Yes.
But there's always the chance that magic's going to do weird shit.
Well, it's
Or you can modify it through rituals, different components, rooms.
Yes, exactly, and keep that in mind because, in my opinion, Frog God Games as a publisher has a lot of yes and when it comes to their spells. And that's just my opinion.
Which is smart. It makes it more robust, that way.
And it makes it more unique.
Yeah.
And it makes it so that your players can't memorize spell lists and then accurately predict 100% of
Basically,
the outcome.
metagame off when their character themselves in that situation should not know this information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more unique magic,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And it's one of the things that I really like about the setting.
It also makes the world seem a lot bigger.
Yes. And there's more to explore.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, I kind of took that concept and I emulated it a little bit for the repercussion of breaking the promise, basically.
Yeah.
So the spell functions like, or the ritual functions like Red Hand of the Thief, where now that he has broken his promise, he is forever marked with his hands, functioning like that. Now, the average person who has absolutely no knowledge of the ritual would just look at that as a very odd wound.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that is something you should see a cleric about. However,
But someone from the Razor Coast.
yeah, someone from the Razor Coast would instantly recognize what that is and know that there would be a shitload of money for bringing him in dead or alive.
Which gives you a lot more tools as the DM to interact with the party.
Correct.
Now we have a dragon, and now we have even the Razor Coast going, excuse me?
Yeah, your list of enemies tripled.
It's growing, yeah.
Well, no, it literally tripled that session, and your list of allies shrank to 0.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, we get that part, yeah. Yeah.
You understand what I mean, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Completely. Yeah. So, yeah, he learned more about his own character in that way.
Correct.
Van did figure out gunpowder and can now work from improving it.
Yeah.
But granted, that also makes him a target once it's recognized that he's the one that got divulged to. Which is, as a player, I look forward to the fun that brings.
All right.
As the character, oh dear lord, what have I done?
Yeah.
But, so that was him, that was them. And then Alec had a dream sequence,
Mm-hmm.
but
But failed it.
did not go as he thought it was supposed to go.
Yes. So Alec's backstory is very similar to yours. So there's a table, and in order to gain points on the table, you have to do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
His it's a will save that becomes more difficult under two circumstances, and then afterwards it's an intelligence check that also becomes more difficult under certain circumstances. If you can pass both, he not only has the dream, but he remembers it.
Like he has done before.
Like he has done before. And so in this case, what happened is, in the dream, there was a test,
Mm-hmm.
and the test was failed.
Yeah, he was told to kneel in front of this female figure, I believe.
Right. So, in all of his, well, I'm not going to say all. In many of his dreams, there's going to be this motif of like a temple.
Mm-hmm.
Because his character is very closely related to Hecate, or
the goddess of magic.
Goddess of magic.
Yeah.
And some other things, but mostly magic. And she actively engages with her followers in different ways, right? She's very active, kind of on the prime material, listening and like planting little threads and stuff. Is everything okay?
It's fine.
Okay. And so there was a new character in his dreams. So this wasn't Hecate, because he kind of observed her for a moment in the dream and recognized like this is not her.
Yeah.
And then he also, like, I can't exactly remember which dreams he's had specifically up to this point, but there has been another female character hinted about. I believe back in his session 0, where there was a feminine figure to his side, and then
to his side, but not sitting in a throne or a seat of power like in this situation.
But then also his emotional tie to that person changed over the course of the dream, and so now this is a third person now, and this person was sitting on a throne within this temple that he's been dreaming about. And she demanded that he kneel.
Yep.
And he trusted this person as an ally. He was getting that emotion, and he chose not to. And so he was cast out of the dream.
Yeah.
All
that desynchronizing and like an animus.
Yes. And it's almost a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing for party calibration. It's a bad thing for his development.
Well, as I told him, he could take this one or two ways. He could take it where otherwise he's going the path he once walked, or he's forging a new path.
Yeah.
Not to take it as so much a failure, but it's just learn from it.
Yeah.
But granted, as you just said, though, it does count as a failure in the way that you set things up so far.
Yes. And what's important is there's like 57 dreams he can have that I've made up. The odds of him getting to a point where he passes the save, passes the in check, and going back to that same dream are very slim.
Okay.
And that was one of the dreams he needed to unlock the custom spell that I made.
Oh.
And
ouch.
That's why I say like it was a good thing for party calibration, because at this level that would have broken the game.
Oh, so he might have got it immediately?
Yeah.
Oh,
like
wow.
He would have just remembered how to prepare it and would have been able to add it into his spell book.
Could he have cast that spell now?
No, he would have lacked the spell level.
But eventually it'd be instantly ready.
Correct.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to give him some hints about his feat selection, because I don't know if I want to say this, but for his backstory, I made him 2 custom spells. So as per
I
the
think
rules,
he did mention that before.
yeah. So as per the rules, you are allowed to come up with your own magic.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, we already have 2 instances of new spells, the astromancy spells that I had given out from Xion, and using the similar rules, I also made 2 that were specific to his backstory. They heavily influence the feats he should take.
Well, you can always give him that DM boon on straightforward, like, hey, this is something you may want to keep in mind when you're picking your stuff.
Yeah.
You choose not to, that's your choice. You choose to, there's benefits to it.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, that's what happened with that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that was, from that point, we made our way to Glendovel
Close.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So this is where stuff gets interesting.
Yeah.
So there was a brief interaction with some of the mercenaries that were making camp there.
Oh, don't mind me. Just do the thing.
Okay. Yeah, there was a brief interaction with some of the mercenaries there. Basically, Gauss was like being Gauss, and then the mercenaries were like, "Is he a prisoner, or
why is that
can we
kobold
kill
not
him?"
in chains?"
Exactly. And so they learned a little bit about how the reports about the hobgoblins working with kobolds was slightly true. The location was off, and so they basically told him, like, yeah, that doesn't really happen to the south. It happens more to the north.
Yeah.
All right, and that's a breadcrumb that hopefully somebody picks up on.
I kind of figured that's what that was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a clue regardless whether it leads to whatever we think it leads to or not. It's still part of the journey.
Exactly. And then also, Tom's character, Coltrane, he met the mayor, the sheriff of Glendovel, Beauregard Dumont. No, what was it? Yeah.
You're mixing a lot of different stuff there, but there was a Beauregard.
It was Beauregard, and
because Jamie was
Dufresne.
Dufresne. Yep.
Took me a second.
Yep. You have a lot of stuff.
I got a lot of stuff on balancing.
And it's not just
here.
for this one. You also play in stuff, so I get it.
Yeah. Beauregard Dufresne, sheriff of Glendovel Close. And so at this point, you guys had only collected 1 hobgoblin head.
That's true. We didn't realize about collecting them. And
correct. And there also wasn't an encounter after learning that you could collect them for money. And you also learned the bounty has gone up from 5 silver pieces to 10 gold pieces. And that's why there's an active mercenary presence here, because that's easy money.
Yeah.
And so tons of people are coming out here to try to protect the road. He talked a little bit about the mountains with him, and then Coltrane tried to procure honey dust
from the sheriff.
And the sheriff was like, "I don't have time for this. Go to the tavern."
Yeah, that reminded me of a campaign I was in briefly at the comic store where the DM was doing a level 0.
Yeah. And
whatever class you wanted to play, you had to find the appropriate item or mentor. And one of the players was like, "I want to play a druid." It's like, all right, I'm gonna go find a druid in the city. And half the table, a little more experienced player, going like, "You want to find a druid in a city?" Okay.
Yeah, have fun with that.
Good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
So I get the.
Yeah. And kind of, Yarwell refilled some of his munitions.
Yeah,
Everybody kind of caught up on
I dumped some surplus. We got some stuff.
Yeah, but this is where I really wish the video didn't cut out. Yeah. This is the most important part. So Grendir asked what churches were present in the town. And so I went into the book.
Yep.
For the campaign setting, and there is usually a breakdown of like a dominant religious breakdown for the Lost Lands campaign book, and if you decide to pick it up, I heavily suggest whoever's running the setting go through and take the extra time to learn about the different human structures, because in the Lost Lands, they break it down so much that it's not just like humans as a faction. There's different sub-factions of humans, elves, dwarves, all throughout the world. And in this case, many of them have their own pantheons. In this city, the dominant group of people were the Fjordwraith humans.
Yeah.
And so I selected a few deities from their pantheon. Since they were the dominant peoples, it would make sense that their churches would be the ones that were most
in this
prominent.
particular region. Yeah.
Right. And so the description of the town was basically just like the breadbasket of Bard's Gate. Like there's a ton of farms, and the town itself is more or less just kind of like a slightly fortified area where all the family homesteads can come together.
It's more like
exchange.
a trade post. Kind
Exactly. And so I was like, Ceres, she's going to be there, Goddess of Crops, all that kind of stuff.
Of course, yeah.
And then I also picked Tyr because law,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I picked a few others, like 80s, so that they could honor the dead. And when he discovered the Church of Tyr, he was like, okay, I'm going to go there, do some praying. And he was trying to do some...
He had augury done to kind of figure out...
So initially what he wanted to do was just try to find a way to communicate with Tyr directly. Like, he wanted to pray. And I was like, okay, so this is your first time playing a cleric. This is your first time really getting into D&D, or in this case, Pathfinder. There are spells that let you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now we looked at his spell list, and I was like, you could cast augury. And the type of information he was trying to get isn't something that augury could fulfill.
Yeah.
And so the attending cleric offered to cast commune for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something incredibly common. You go to a temple of whoever, and you request purchasing spells.
Yep.
This is exactly the same thing that the shaman did earlier in the session.
Yeah.
So in this case, the cleric, overhearing and witnessing the inexperience, offered guidance and offered to fulfill that service.
Mm-hmm.
So seeking spiritual guidance is usually something that's very common.
Yeah.
In this case, at the temple. So I didn't have him wait a day so that the priest could prepare commune, since clerics aren't spontaneous casters.
Yeah.
But he only had one prepped, so he had one allotment of questions.
Which in this case turned out to be 17.
17, yeah. I rolled a d20 to determine the effective level of the cleric,
Okay.
not the actual level. So, what?
Right there. That's perfect. You're good. Continue doing what you're doing.
Okay. Okay. So to overlap a little bit.
Yeah.
just
So you
because
rolled to see about the effective caster level.
I rolled to see the effective caster level of the cleric. Certain things can up your effective caster level without actually upping your character level.
Yeah.
So in this case, like relics, holy relics.
I know in 3.5 there was a candled invocation used by
that
clerics.
kind of stuff, or the reliquary holy symbol. I think was another one that gave you an effective +2. Plus, if you some domains also give you like a +1.
Yeah.
But I rolled a 17, so I was like, effectively, he could answer 17 questions, which I was like, that's good.
Which is a lot for most tables to get over.
Well, in this case, I honestly wasn't expecting you guys to ask the questions you asked.
We did ask some good questions.
But it started, the first, I think, 2 or 3 were standard.
Oh, are we doing good?
Yeah, how are we doing? And then after that, it was just like,
yeah,
plot
this
railroad.
is where we got a lot of a lot of plot details I didn't think you expect us to get so soon.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm not upset about it. Like, everybody gets to them their own way.
Which I think is an important lesson to every group out there.
Yeah.
Never underestimate having a cleric in your party.
Yeah. So the first question that we got was, are we going to encounter the Red Dragon within 3 days? And so usually commune is like, yes, no, unclear, unable to answer. And I was irked by this question because I was going up into all this. I was trying to stress the importance of it needs to be a yes or a no question. And so obviously, like, whether or not you're going to encounter a specific creature within a specific time frame heavily depends on your intent on finding the creature.
Yeah.
So, I basically, I had the cleric. Tyr answered unable to answer, and the cleric was like, "It depends on how bad you fuck up."
Yeah.
Like, that's...
I think probably the better wording would be, is the dragon actively pursuing us now?
That would have been a better question.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind for next time. So then, the second question was, are people following us into the city of Glendalval Close?
The one supposed to be following us from Bart's Gate.
Correct, because this is going back to, I believe, session 1. One of the earlier ones.
1 or 2, yeah.
Yeah, where the purpose of your quest was given by Caden.
Yes.
And so effectively, he and his entourage are pursuing a lead
over in the
Wizard's Wall, which is over here.
Yeah.
And while they kind of covertly go that way, your quest was to take the main road north and
draw the
attention as his associates.
Yeah, and I believe Father Mallory or Melphus, one of the two, was like being followed.
Yes.
So we were expecting an ambush from the rear since we've been on the road.
Correct. And so the wording of this question, with that in mind, is, are the people following us into the city?
Yeah.
And the answer was no.
Yeah.
So, again, keep this in mind. Had the question been, are people following us from Bard's Gate?
In the city?
The answer would have been more clear.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's this is a circumstance of where your wording of the question, answered truthfully,
Yep.
may have given you the wrong impression.
Yep.
Okay? Now this one was kind of funny. I don't understand why they asked this. But the third question was, is the Sword of Air in the city we're going to? And I asked benevolently for clarification.
I remember this moment now, yeah.
Because your goal is Glavir.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's kind of going to be like a staging point for you to get to Sen.
Yeah. Sen's the ultimate goal, but yeah.
But yes. But he clarified to Sen, and the answer is no. Which is interesting. Because, again, going back to those earlier sessions, Caden's disclosed belief was that he thinks the sword is somewhere in that city. Yeah. He
believes that Sen is the key to getting to the sword. And
it's the key to finding the sword.
Yeah.
And so, after there was some clarification, okay, it turned into a viable question. This is where me as a dungeon master started thinking, they're going to ask a shit ton of questions about the Sword of Air. And this is the cool thing. Bill Webb, off the top of my head, is the primary author.
Okay.
There are other authors credited, but I believe Bill Webb is the primary author of the Sword of Air. In the description of the sword, they talk about what forms of magic can detect it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a powerful artifact.
It is. And the really cool thing is this next question. Is the Sword of Air in someone's possession? And Tyr was like, I am unable to answer that. Now, that... So as the fourth question, I was like, okay, this is interesting. We're starting to explore more, primary plot points.
Yep.
There are rules in the book that outline how to scry for the sword. Commune is not one of them.
Yeah.
All right. And Tyr is a greater deity, and I think that is another breadcrumb that should be observed.
It's definitely a red flag that
some head honcho is like, I can't answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was getting a little bit of the my last character, Corvin's, commune with gods, and another god interrupted, saying, "That's none of your business."
Yeah.
And told me to butt out, and I was like, I didn't know they could do that.
They can. Yeah. Active deity magic is a topic for another time.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. Interesting. So yeah, that was the fourth question. The fifth question is, are any of the people who presented us our quest secretly working against us? This one, I was screaming internally. Because I was like, how did they know? And so, and the answer was yes.
Yeah.
And so immediately, everyone at the party was like, who is it? We need clarification. What's going on here?
Yeah, they wanted to use, they want to go through, I think, 4 questions to pinpoint who.
Yeah, and they were basically just going to be like, is it this person? Is it this person? Is it this person? And I was like, you guys are, I mean, you could, but just
it's not necessary.
Find a way to phrase that in one question. Yeah. And so, to go back to session 0, Caden had 4 primary associates that basically went and collected you guys. Vorg, Melthus, Father Mallory, and Galorian Fane.
Yeah.
And so everybody was like, is it Caden? Is it one of those 4? Is it Caden's wife? Like all these other...
Oh yeah, there was a lot
of interjection about who it could be. It was all funny.
Which is funny because from the other perspective, you have a cleric talking to Tyr, and Tyr's like, I don't got all day, guys. What's your questions? But, yeah, so we started hitting that breadcrumb trail there.
Right, and so this was the next question, question 6. Is Reverend Mallory the one working against us? Shittily worded question. Because is he the one working against you? Maybe. I'm not going to answer that now, but Tyr answered yes.
Yeah, which a later question I think is kind of why, but we'll get
which
to
is
that
also
question.
funny because Reverend Mallory is a cleric of Tyr.
And that was a later question.
Yeah,
kind of points that out in a way. My character said that in observation of that, because we asked at one point, which we'll get to that question, was what I forgot how we worded, but like Tyr's intent with the sword or whatever
aligned with Caden's.
Yeah,
the answer was no.
Yeah,
and yeah. So and then I was like, why is this guy?
Yeah.
Something I will point out to you. I don't know if you've noticed it. Tyr is god of law, and because we had to shoot your backstory so many times, I deliberately dropped this breadcrumb every single time. Reverend Mallory stole from that shop.
I have noticed that. I did observe that.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
And I have noted that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh. Because the first time I recorded it was more like a, okay, like funny, and then I'm like, he did that every time.
Yeah.
Tyr, Order of Law. Something. Okay.
Yeah. I specifically wrote that in for you. And I want you to explore that.
Yeah. Like I said, I have my own notes, and I'm actually making a series of videos. Van's just basic journal.
Okay.
Of his observation of stuff, and that will be noted.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm glad we had that moment. All right. Question 7. I think. Oh, this was by Yawa, and I was like, "Will I be hunted down for the info that I gave to Alec?" Which is wrong. That's supposed to be Van.
Yeah.
And yes.
Yeah, that was a wonderful waste of a question because I was like, but he paid for it,
and
so
he did pay for it, but I was
can't
just
stop him.
All right, question 8. Correct the spelling here. Is Caden's wife actually sick?
Yes, this was a good one, I thought.
Yeah. The answer was no.
Yeah. I know we wanted to also ask, does he even have a wife?
Yeah, I think that was
proposed a lot.
That was proposed a lot, yeah. All right. Number 9. Is Caden's wife the one who wants the sword? also no.
We asked that?
Yeah.
We did.
Oh my god.
It was one of the ones decided upon.
Oh, that was a dumb question.
No, not as dumb as an error question, but it's alright.
Oh, I have a couple in there that I stole from
Oh yeah.
everybody.
So now this one, she got the names backed up because now she had Van over here with this one, but this was Alex's question, so I'm going to correct that real quick. Does Caden know how to fix my memories?
Yeah. No.
So this would coming back to
Yeah.
the Alex amnesia, and the answer was no.
Yep.
Son of a bitch.
Which he did fairly say I could help research.
I could
that.
research it.
He did.
Yeah, a bit of a wasted question there.
Basically, he pulled a
No,
how.
because if he said he could research it, he could have been lying to me.
This is
And
true.
I've been like, well, does he know how to do it? If he does, he could have just helped me right then and there.
I just
This
felt
is
he
true.
pulled a Palpatine on you.
Yeah.
Well, there are many ways to bring it back.
Yeah.
Oh, you can help me. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, totally.
I have no idea.
Unlimited power.
All right, so
All right, so that was question 10. Question 11. Is our presence in this adventure part of a ritual or some kind of requirement to acquire the Sword of
that
Air?
was a surprise.
This was a very
Sneaky
yeah.
question.
That
I
was
like
a
that.
very that was like a very Tom broke the fourth wall for a second.
Yeah.
And yeah, can I help you? Yes.
He wants
hello?
love, dude.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
But I felt was still in line with his
Alright,
character, actually.
Oh yeah, true. He is a summoner.
He is.
So he has
So he has
some-
an idea of how those kind of shenanigans can happen, and
Yeah.
signing of contracts and all that. So it was within character.
Right.
But he deep
so,
it was for
so just to kind of expand on
Yeah.
that for a moment, the basis of his question was basically like, are we some sort of sacrifice, or is
Yeah.
our pursuit of the Sword of Air,
like a key ingredient to get.
yeah, a requirement
Mm-hmm.
for Caden to get it? And the answer was no. Which I thought was received by the party in an interesting manner. Because then there was a little bit of murmuring then about like, then what's our actual purpose?
I think there was some disappointment, like,
Surf butter.
oh man, why are we? Are we not that important?
Well-
Damn, we're not good enough to be part of the sacrifice.
I don't want to be part of your sacrifice.
Yeah, but it was still a good question. I felt.
Yeah. Now this one was a very interesting question. Was Caden honest with us about his intentions for the Sword of Air?
It was a very well worded question.
Right. So again, going back to session 1.
Yeah.
At this point, Caden said that he needed the power of the sword to save his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And he was basically like going to share the power after he was done. Anybody else who wanted
Or
to use the
dispose
sword,
of it or whatever, yeah.
whatever that time could be decided. And the answer to that question is no.
Yep.
He's a filthy liar, is what he is.
So we got a reveal that basically our employer was not honest with us for any of his motivations as to what was going on,
Yeah.
which that spread a lot of paranoia and revenge fuel. Like,
Yeah.
let's go after him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to go after the Archbishop? Yeah! Right, guys.
We almost died to a couple of fucking bats. I'm pretty sure we don't want to go after the fucking Archmage.
To be
guys.
fair, they were pretty big bats.
Yeah.
They almost killed the puppy.
Question 14. Is there any information about the Sword of Air in Sen? Yes.
Yes, that was.
Yes.
That's the
That's
desert area.
yes.
Right?
Well, specifically, the desert is the Burning Wastes, and the city is called Sen. It's a ruined city. All right. Question 15.
We were definitely at this point really trying to be very selective on the questions. Like, we only have a few left, guys.
Yeah.
Think very carefully. We only have a few.
This is another. Oh my gosh, she's getting the names mixed up. Is there anything related to my past in Sen? This one came from Alec. Answer is no. 16. Does Sorton's intentions for the Sword of Air align with Tyr?
That was the key question.
This was the key question. Yes.
Sword's the good guy.
Well,
Sorton, going back, is the evil necromancer
well,
that Caden is rivaled.
that's what Caden said.
That's what Caden says.
We don't know if that's true or not. We don't know if that's just misdirection or if it is. He could be a necromancer. Does not mean he's actually evil.
Well, I mean, it doesn't also mean that he intends to
use it for rainbow
use it
and
for evil,
butterflies.
yeah,
So, yeah.
or
He
whatever.
could be a bad guy, but it doesn't make him a bad guy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's actually a book series I read called The Old Kingdom where the main character is actually a necromancer who sends the dead back to the
Yeah.
afterlife.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why I always keep the concept of necromancy is not necessarily bad juju. It's just generally,
It's
you're
just-
not supposed to do that.
Yeah, it's just 99% of the time.
But then again, healing magic should be necromancy technically because it's messing with the life force.
Yes and no.
But they're still
so-
alive.
So, with respect to 3-5 and Pathfinder,
Mhm.
healing magic comes from the positive energy plane.
Yeah.
It's conjuration healing. Undeath comes from the negative energy plane. So they are two separate forces that have similar effects. I will give you that. There are some necromantic healing effects, and there are some infernal healing effects. Healing is not exclusive to conjuration healing.
Like I said, I just seen the arguments for it. And I'm like, it's a good argument.
Yeah, it is.
Where it's the idea that basically magic's a tool. It's not inherently good or evil to whoever uses it and what they use it for. But back to the questions of Sordin, intentions did align with Tyr. And then I think at this point, my character, or even just me, pointed out, we don't know what the god's intentions are.
Correct.
So it may align with what we think is right or wrong, or it may not.
So I think you're kind of thinking about that one backwards. The question was, are Sordin's intentions align? And I took that as alignment spectrum.
Yeah.
Lawful good with Tyr, right? So the deity of law. So it's does this mortal's intentions appear lawful?
Okay.
Right? That's how I interpreted that. Okay. So.
Well, I didn't ask the question, so. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we can.
Yeah, but that's
information
clarifying.
that's free to the party.
Yeah.
Right. You could ask for DM clarification at any point in time.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So that definitely
and then the
threw me.
last one was, I think, effectively at this point, it was proposed.
Questions, right?
You had 17 questions. Yeah. At this point, the party was like, well, we need to get in touch with Sordin and start trying to figure out what to do. And so they asked if there was an agent of Sordin in this town, and the answer was no.
Yeah, it was. At that point, no one really had a good question to ask, so it was more of a Hail Mary, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
And yeah, since that point, at that, we were definitely part of the party wanting to go immediately to the Wizard's Wall and face Caden or find Sordin, and it was like...
And then there was some geographical talk about, how they would get there. And then after the party left, Yawa, being typical Yawa Nakamori...
He paid for 3 more questions.
He paid for 3 more questions. And he asked, is the Sword of Air located north of the Wizard's Wall? No. Is the Sword of Air located south of the Stoneheart Mountains? No.
Yep.
And in his logic at this point, he was thinking like, oh, well, that's like the whole continent.
No, well, that's more like why they can't see me right now, but pretty much
'cause my
from
fat head's in the way.
from looking at the camera, from the mountains to the right of the mountains, in above, and that's that region. Pretty much where Sen and the desert and all that is where it's like, okay, that's how I interpret. But then again, only his character has that information.
I think he did share it at the end. He went back and said, like, I paid for 3 more questions.
You're right.
Yeah, but I think didn't we tell him that his logic was a little flawed because, like...
We did.
Okay, good. I just wanted to
And
make sure we did
because,
that.
and this is the other thing and this is what I brought up to him after he was done concluding his questions, is geographical locations do not reflect positions on other planes.
Yep.
And they also don't reflect, geographical positions don't reflect locations of objects that are permanently obscured.
Mm-hmm.
And so, effectively, like, if you were to ask, is the Sword of Air in the kitchen? No, it's not in there. Is the Sword of Air in this house? No, it's not in there. Is the Sword of Air in the United States? No. Like, that's effectively what he asked.
Even though it could be in the kitchen in the United States.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because it's obscured.
A specially created
Because-
artifact that's obscured.
Obscured, and this, as you guys pick up more breadcrumbs, you'll learn more. But then also think back about that question where you asked, is the sword currently in somebody's possession? I don't fucking know. Unable to answer. Does
Because
not
if
compute.
it's obscured, they can't see the person.
Exactly.
Answer not found.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the last one was, is the Sword of Air located west of the Jayan hegemony? East of the Jayan hegemony. So that's way out here to the side.
Mhm.
So he's basically asking, like, is it kind of in this region?
Yeah, he was trying to geographically pinpoint at least the region.
Kind of like
be
triangulate in where
Yeah.
to start looking, and no, it's not. Yeah, so that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very interesting session. I'm very upset that it got lost.
I am too. There was a lot of fun little moments, and it was definitely a good character and just story, but good pacing with it.
Yeah.
Kind of like, like when you read a good book, there'll be times where it's just constant. Like, okay, all right, we have to go through this part to get there, and then you get to this part, like, okay, now it was worth it.
Yeah.
There was none of that. It was all worth it.
Well, I mean, prime example is actually in the last Harry Potter book. The first half is immensely boring. It's a very long journey of, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And then all of a sudden it flips, and you're like, okay, hey, we're there. But then all of that adds into the finale. As an example.
I had briefly described, not briefly, I described that first segment of the party being split and a little bit of banter as unimportant.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessarily contributing to the main story. It was the last 45 minutes that really made that episode.
No, the first hour and a half was us just,
We had minor reveals for personal backstories, but that last part, and there were these questions where it's like, okay, we're shifting into more focus now.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully, we don't have that issue anymore. But you're still gonna be doing recaps.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe like every 6 episodes, do one of these.
Yeah.
And just kind of talk about lore, story, the world.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that this isn't by any means like an indie campaign setting, but I would say that it is underhyped. There is an immense amount of information. There is an immense amount of content, and I recognize that with so much going on in the world today, not everybody has the time to basically sit down and read an encyclopedia about a fictional world. And so I wanted to do updates and discuss the world building that was setting canon and talk about how that was being incorporated into the campaign canon of the stuff.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, it's a good way to.
Can you mute that?
It's a good way for as anyone watching, as well as the players, if we watch this to kind of refresh ourselves.
Yeah.
It allows us, as when we're playing as our characters, to have more of what our characters' knowledge would already have to an extent.
Yeah.
Like with the gods and goddesses, for example. Like, okay, we're in the Northwest. Of course, this is going to have mainly, it's ruled by these domains, so we're going to see more of these temples. We might need to kind of play ball or something. Or if we ever go south to the Raging Coast, it's a completely different situation. It's like, hey, hoods up, mask up.
Yeah. I definitely want to do a couple of videos breaking down the geography. Talking about Akados, Libnos, and Boros.
Not the Isle of Grinch.
Yeah, well, that's Libnos.
Okay.
we have the Grinch, we have the bird, we have the pterodactyl head.
And we can make a video on that as well.
The Yucatan Peninsula.
I see the
Which
bird.
is actually what that really is. That's what they base it off of.
Here comes the rocks, guys.
So that's the one with, that's based off the Aztec Empire, correct? That part of land right there? Because if that's what that is, that's where that
Hey, Alex,
Peninsula is.
you know how you don't remember anything?
This right here, this looks like the Sinai Peninsula
Yeah.
right here, where Jerusalem would technically be, and this would technically be Egypt, and this is where all the gods in this land are technically around, like Egyptian gods. Isn't that's like they took the
Hey,
actual
Steve.
piece of the world, and put it right there, except for the Grinch's
Hey,
eyes.
Steve, you know how Al doesn't remember anything?
Yeah.
How would you like to forget more stuff?
Oh, he probably will.
Yeah, we had a really good time talking about that dream you failed.
Dude, I rolled
Well, hold
3
on.
natural 20s and then a fucking 40% to get that one little
that
memory,
one.
and I fucked it up.
Yep.
You're under the mic.
Sorry.
So, We'll get. You guys can talk more about that afterwards. So
Yeah, it was pretty.
I think this has been a good
This is the section
recap.
recordings people want to watch.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But this is still a good recap.
Yeah.
And also kind of make up for a loss of. Actually, we had a really good session. Unfortunately, we can't share that now because it's just lost. But hopefully, we don't have that problem in the future, and we can do more of these recaps, just as you said, to build more of the world and knowledge of it, and to also for us in a way that I think better clarify our own notes and observations.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent. Well, then I think that's a good place to hit cut.
All right. Well,
Cut
then,
and upload.
see you on Saturday.
See everybody Saturday.